Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So it's April 7th, 2020, Uposita, full moon, Abhayagiri. And it's great that we have this big hall and we can spread out a bit. And lights are on bright for the live stream. Everything's always changing. And the weather's been good, so the forest is very beautiful right now, and deer are out and about, and mountain lions are out and about, and Ajahn Dhamma and Tantisaro and Tanchitapalo saw a pair of mountain lions. They seemed very calm, and they were wandering around during the day, late afternoon, and I think Tantisaro was actually communing with one. Guess it's not so easy to find what to talk about when people might be watching the live stream, and people are in their homes, presumably, most people, and just interesting times. We live in interesting times, and it's kind of like being on Tudong, just everything is uncertain. Everything is always uncertain, but then sometimes there's events in our lives or in the world that highlight that sense of uncertainty. This is the central truth of Buddhism, what we're really looking at, the realization of stream entry. It's all arising Dhammas, ceasing Dhammas, all that arises. Cessation is defined by that very arising. So arising and ceasing. So just contemplating, thinking about, considering arising and ceasing. And that the getting caught in arising and ceasing, that's the very heart of what samsara, what cyclic existence is. And the freedom from arising and ceasing is the very essence of Nibbana, what that is. If you can say it is something, you can't really say that, but we have to use concepts and words to try to fathom what Nibbana is, the final goal of Buddhist practice. What that actually is, what's that pointing at? all these phrases in the suttas that come up, then it's like becoming cool right here. That's one of the descriptions of Nibbana that the Buddha uses. It's like the heart becoming cool right here. So what do we do to say honor that? That we take it. If we start out in the practice, we take these things on faith. The Buddha talked about faith followers, Dhamma followers. Yeah. Dhamma followers being those who go by reasoned reflection, and they get interested in the Dhamma through like their wisdom faculty, and then there's faith followers who might get interested in the Dhamma through the faith faculty. And so how do we honor that intention of moving toward Nibbana? It's kind of mysterious, like why we get interested in the practice. And kamma comes into this too. Kamma and these qualities of renunciation. One of the wonderful and marvelous things about the Dhamma is that although it instructs us to call into question and go against our desires, which by the very nature of desire is something that it doesn't want to not be fulfilled. That's why it's desire. But a wonderful and amazing thing about the Dhamma is it causes us to call into question and go against desire, to start to look into it and just consider it and question it, and to also call into question and go against the tendency toward becoming. And so we're moving toward stilling, moving toward cessation. So all these qualities like sila, for example, taking on precepts in order to develop a sense of composure and of heart, something which is leading to contentment and ease, but also then to stilling and a cooling down. As another thing that's kind of interesting to think about is that if we don't really think about and proliferate about issues or problems that we may have too much, where do they go? Where do those problems go? What happens to them if we don't think about them? Just the power of thought. It creates moods and emotions. These are the sankharas. Just thinking about something has the power to, we can really, our lives can become very, very good based on thought, or we can bring ourselves to ruin just based on thought, just something immaterial. So what happens when, say, there may have been some issue that we're thinking about, And then we come into the meditation hall and we decide, okay, well, I'm going to do some meditation. I'm going to go to my meditation object. And the thoughts are kind of coming up, like, and the mind is kind of chattering away, but then we're, okay, Buddho, Buddho, Buddho. And then, well, what's going to happen if this, if that, if that, if that? And okay, Buddho, Buddho, Buddho. And then at a certain point, we kind of stop thinking about whatever issue we were thinking about, and we might even forget about it. And then at a certain point, it might kind of hit us, well, what happened there? I felt bad. Now I feel good because I'm not thinking about that thing. And it was just thought. So what's going on there? So the Buddha talked about there is the wrong way, there is the right way. So like, when the Buddha says something is wrong, what he's pointing toward is that it's a cause for suffering. And when he says something is wrong, it's not only a cause for suffering, but it's unwholesome. So the very definition of wrong or unwholesome is cause of suffering. Very definition of something which is right, according to the Buddha, is wholesome, is cause for ease, contentment, happiness. That's the very definition of right, according to the Buddha. So the Buddha's not like judging us, like you're a good person or a bad person. When he says there's the right way and the wrong way, the Buddha's pointing toward you have a choice. Right way being contentment, ease, well-being. Wrong way being suffering, distress, dis-ease, dukkha. That's the whole teaching can be encompassed in that. Samsara, the wrong way, samsara, the right way, Nibbana. So the Buddha is pointing toward that which is undesirable and that which is highly desirable. And it's taking it away from personalizing it. It's just saying, do these things and you suffer, do these other things, and you have well-being and ease. And the teaching is just put out there for those who are interested. But it is kind of mysterious, like why would we actually get interested in Dhamma? What is it that actually grabs us? And it's going to be kind of different for everybody, and this is where I think Kamma comes into it. And I think of our friend Dominic, who that would be really cool if he was listening in the live stream this evening and got to hear this talk. But we were walking out on the loop trail and he was doing dana. He was clearing the trail up to the Chedi site, and we were walking out the trail to, we were passing the waterfall on the Cool Oaks Loop Trail and going out to do some more work on the Chedi site trail, and he was telling, he's like the #1 Ajahn Sucitto fan. And he's listened to, he said he's listened to all 860 recorded Ajahn Sucitto talks, and he's now looping around and listening to them all again. And Ajahn Sucitto is totally amazing as far as a speaker, and Dominic was telling me he never repeats himself. He's got so many talks and he never repeats himself, and the Dhamma is just profound and it's so applicable and so useful, and so he's saying this is like the most amazing stuff ever. And so then he told me, he's got these friends. It's like, you gotta hear this. This is amazing. And so he turned on an Ajahn Sucitto talk for one of his friends, and they were just kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. I guess it's all right, you know. They just weren't interested in it, and he couldn't believe it. It's just like, how could you not think that this is totally amazing? So I think it's just karma, and these friends were just friends, you know, not necessarily interested in Dhamma practice, but yeah, it's really interesting. Why do some people get interested? Why do others not? And it's not like people who aren't interested in Dhamma are necessarily bad people in any way. But there's somehow some people get hooked by it and some people don't. And so I think it's kind of like something grabs you about the teaching, and it's like you're following a scent. You're not quite sure where the breadcrumb trail is going, but you're kind of like, okay, there's something here, and you kind of follow it step by step, and it's kind of like a feeling, and you just keep following it, and sometimes you lose the trail, and it's not quite clear where you're going, and then something kind of grabs you again, and you just sort of keep going, and then you get this kind of, oh wow, this is you start to see where it's leading. You know, using the image of maybe following a forest trail. At first you're in a desert, and you kind of see these crumbs. It's like, oh, there's a sense that this leads somewhere good, and then you kind of come out of the desert, and there's more kind of shrubs and grasses, and then it starts to lead into this forest, and then the forest gets more and more beautiful and more comfortable, and then there's clear pools where you can drink water, and there's forest animals, and you become very, very comfortable, and there's a sense of solitude. You know, it's kind of like that, like it like the Buddha's teaching leads us along, and we get these little signposts where it's like, okay, this is confirming my faith here. It wasn't just some whim or some fancy or just seemed like a random good idea at the time. It actually is good. It actually is right. So then we keep going. And going and going and going, and it's not to say there's not struggles over the months and the years, perhaps even the decades of practice, but if we keep practicing and if we're giving rise to mindfulness, it never really gets old. It's always fresh. It's always here and now. So mindfulness, that's an interesting thing to talk about, because I don't know if many people really can get their minds around what mindfulness actually is. Mindfulness is a very special type of sankhara. It's something we do, and it's a sense of remembering what we're supposed to be doing. There's like an aspect of recollection to it. And the word is sati, and it's usually coupled with either the words sampajanya or panya. So sampajanya meaning, like, in Thai the word is ru-rop, which is like knowing around or fully encompassing, knowing, full awareness. The sati is like recollection, just remembering what is the Dhamma saying we're supposed to be doing at any given time. But sati is also, it creates kamma. It creates kamma. So it's a very special type of kamma. So like, if we talk about these root defilements that the Buddha spoke of, the mula kilesa, the greed, hatred, delusion, lobha, dosa, moha. So if we talk about those things are intentionality or volitional formations that create kamma. So say anger, that if we say anger comes in the mind, thoughts of anger, thoughts of ill will, we decide to follow them, we decide to tell somebody off or attack somebody or just say something unskillful, then that creates kamma. That's mental kamma, verbal kamma, perhaps bodily kamma. And greed, so if we decide to act on that, then that creates kamma. So we decide to maybe go for something unskillfully or take something we shouldn't take. That's sort of acting on greed, so that creates kamma. So with the kamma of sati, or mindfulness, what sati is doing is those things can arise in the mind, say either greed or anger, or we could think of it as like attraction or aversion. Those things can arise in the mind, but then we're stepping back and reflecting on it. The establishing of mindfulness is the remembering to reflect on our experience rather than follow it or push it away. So rather than like get caught by it, then we're stepping back and actually reflecting on the experience and trying to see the experience without getting caught by it. So that's the establishing of sati. Lungpar Ban has a teaching where he said sati is like your brakes. So like if you don't have sati, you don't have any brakes, and you keep careening down some dangerous hill. But if you have sati, then that's like your brakes, and you can always put the brakes on at any moment. That's establishing sati, and then you step back and you look at the experience and reflect on the experience. And that's, some teachers talk about it as the knowing, establishing the knowing. That would be coupled with sampajanya. So the stepping back and establishment of sati, or the knowing, that's the right response. That's the skillful response to experience. So the worldly way would be, say, to get caught by attraction or aversion. This is what the Buddha's talking about when we begin our meditation in the Satipatthana Sutta, is having relinquished covetousness and grief in regards to the world. The world being defined by the 6 sense bases, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and their respective objects, the eye and forms, the ear and sounds, nose and smells, tastes, and tongue and tastes, body and tangible objects, and the mind and thoughts or mind objects. That being the world of experience. And so having crossed one's legs, ever mindful, one breathes in, ever mindful, one breathes out, having relinquished covetousness and grief for the world. Covetousness, the Pali word is abhijja, and then grief in that sutta is domanassa. Having relinquished covetousness and grief for the world. Then you get reflecting on the body, the establishment of mindfulness in the body, the establishment of mindfulness on feeling, mind, and mind objects or dhammas. So that's when we use our Buddhist jargon in the monastery, coming back to the body. That's like reestablishing mindfulness with an anchor in the body, or it has to have some sort of base or place to stand. And that can be either considering the body as the four elements: earth, water, fire, and wind. That can be considering the body as the 32 parts, reflecting on the various organs. The mula kammatthana being the root 5 parts that we learn in the novice ordination. It's the first meditation object that was taught to novices since the time of the Buddha until now in the Theravada tradition. That's the hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. Those are the mula kammatthana, because those are the 5 visible parts. When we see someone or perceive someone else or ourselves, then what we see is hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. And so we start at the very beginning of the practice with that mindfulness of the body. Then we start by just reflecting on and considering, what is the body, what is its nature, and how is it uncertain, how is it impermanent, what does it arise from, what's the relationship between the body and food. For example, how we eat food and then the body grows in various ways, and it also excretes in various ways, and our parts of the nutritive essence of food is excreted if the body can't make use of it, and if the body can make use of it, then it emerges as hair, as body hair, as head hair. It emerges as sweat, various types of fluid, or it becomes linings in the organs, or it becomes skin, which then flakes off as dead skin cells. So the relationship between physical food and the physical body is something to be contemplated. The Buddha went so far as to say, if you don't gain insight into the true nature of physical food and the physical body, you actually can't attain Nibbana. So these are very, very important reflections. And not just for monastics, but lay people. Everybody's of the same nature. You don't have to, it's not that you put on robes and then these things start happening. It happens if you wear pants, it happens if you wear shirts. It doesn't just happen when you wear robes. But the robes are a reflection. The patterning of the robes is a reflection. It's the pattern after the Buddha had Ananda sew robes based on the design of the rice fields of Magadha, the paddy fields of Magadha. So it's in these dike and field patterns. This is what links all Buddhist traditions in the world: the Tibetan tradition, whether it's Tibetan, Sri Lankan, Chinese, Thai, anywhere, even Japanese Zen use this paddy field and dike pattern that we sew into our robes. The different colors are pretty arbitrary. It's based on the natural dyes that existed in those countries, like the early Tibetans using red earth for their red robes and then saffron for the yellow part of their robes, or the Sri Lankans using mahogany early on, the Thais using heartwood of the jackfruit tree. So these colors are very arbitrary, and now when all these traditions come to America, then we try to copy all these colors with chemical dyes. Or we can make our own American forest tradition and start using the bark of the manzanita and madrone trees, which Venerable Kondanyo, Tisero, Chittapalo, a few others have been experimenting with. You'll notice those different colors. But the robe is a reflection on food and the body, just it's the rice fields. It's also a reflection on generosity, that we exist because of the generosity of the lay people. So it's like we have the winter retreat crew and still staying on in April, and this is amazing. This is our great good fortune that they're all continuing to look after us. It's like this the Buddha's just a genius creating this relationship. Unbelievable. Amazing. It's like the lay people create food and offer food to the monastics, and they also benefit because we all practice together, we all get to practice together, we get to benefit from the practice of the monastics, the practice of the monks as we do our practice. They get to tap into that. And the benefit is very mutual. Also, like the good karma of offering food to the monastics. So the Buddha going so far as to say, if you knew as I do the benefits of generosity, you wouldn't let a single meal go by without giving some of it away. So the Buddha could see some sort of incredible benefit of generosity, and most of us won't be able to see that, to see the karmic link between giving and relinquishment and happiness and well-being. I remember learning in first time ever meeting Lumpur Liam, it was here at Abhayagiri. I had never been to Thailand before, and I was one vasa, and I remember Lumpur Liam stayed in the duplex, actually, at that time, and went to give him a foot massage one night, and Ajahn Prateep, a Thai monk who was living here at the time, who spoke some English as well, so he went to help translate for me, and I got to ask some questions of Lumpur Liam. But remember he said some sort of colloquial phrase, and I don't know what it is in the Thai, but Ajahn Prateep translated it as, when you give and when you make giving habitual, then, and especially when you undergo hardship and suffering for the sake of another, the well-being and happiness that comes back to you as a result of that is like way more than the effort you had to put in. Like the happiness is like, can't even be compared with like the suffering you undergo. If it's for the sake of another, then the happiness you get back is way, way more than that, something like that. So I just always remember that. And the benefits of generosity, giving. So the design of the robe is also a reflection on generosity. It's not just a reflection on the unattractive nature of food going into the body and creating a body and coming out in various ways, but it's also a reflection on generosity and gratitude. So we wear these robes, it's like we're wearing the generosity. And the cloth also was donated, given to us. Some of it was given to us during katina ceremonies. Some of it was given to us during other times. So the robe itself contains all these reflections in it, which we carry with us all the time. It's a tool for the practice. It's an aid for the practice. It's a very useful, helpful convention. And we patch our robes. They're impermanent. They degenerate like anything else. And we wear them for as long as we can, within reason. So at a certain point we might sew new robes and replace them, but we do patch our robes. We do things like socks. There's a culture here of darning socks. So Venerable Chittapalo darns my socks for me. And they develop holes, and then they get fixed once or twice before we change to new socks. So we have this sense of resourcefulness. just a kind of a personal reflection, but I think that when the Buddha's talking about dana being, if you knew as I do, the results of giving and sharing, you wouldn't let a single meal go by without giving and sharing, then I think partly what it's pointing toward is it's starting to get the mind around giving up internally. So if we can start to give things up externally, then we can actually start to relinquish our burdens. We can start to relinquish our internal burdens, and that's the Buddha uses another word for that. That's chaga, which is also generosity, but it's more in terms of relinquishment. And when we give and share and we learn how to be open-handed, and then we go into more of a mode of relinquishment, then it's not difficult to see that the results of ease and contentment and well-being that come from that. We might even think, like, why didn't I do this before? But it's kind of interesting. Like, why do we even notice that that's beneficial, or what spurs us on to practice in that way? Yeah, it's pretty just a interesting contemplation. And coming back to impermanence, this is just time just keeps rolling on, and we just keep getting older, and it's just the way it is. We start to see this and know this and accept this, and the heart can become cool here and now. So I'll leave that for reflection this evening.